Welcome back to Heidi's Lane. We are officially in part 3 of my No Fail New Year. I'm super excited about today's topic. I mean, so far the things that we've covered are they're amazing. We talked about integrity the first week. We talked about thoughts and overthinking and how to rewrite your story and master your mind last time. We've sprinkled in a couple fun episodes in between, and today, oh my gosh, today's third key is so amazing, especially when you pair it with the personal integrity and you pair it with everything you listened about thoughts and overthinking. Now, one thing I want you to understand, if you're just tuning in and you're like, I have not listened to part 1 or part 2, Heidi, that is okay. Yes, these are designed to build upon each other, and you will get something unique and special if you listen to all 3 of them, or all 5 by the time we finish this. But they are also designed to each be able to stand independently of each other. So you don't have to have listened to part 1 and part 2 to get the most out of today's episode. Just go back and listen to them when you get a chance, because I'm telling you, spoiler alert, integrity is the most important key to all of them. So go listen to that. But they're all important for very different reasons, because if you can't master your mind, and if you let your mind master you, you're going to have a really hard time reaching any goal, right? And it's super cool. All of these, including today's lesson, it's not just about reaching your goals. And while I'm here teaching you this so you can have a no-fail new year or reach any goal you set, every one of these are such crucial keys to living your best life, to living a life where you actually feel free, right? And I think, at least for me, that's one of my core values. I mean, maybe one of these days I'll do a podcast on core values, because man, once you can identify those, everything kind of shifts and molds and falls into place, or at least it did for me. You know, I think I spent much of my life doing what I thought people wanted me to do and not really understanding what I wanted, and actually taking the time to understand my core values, which is even deeper than your why. You know, you hear people talk a lot about finding your why, which I talk about. But even your why has no basis or foundation if you don't understand your core values. And so what this 5-part series will also do for you is it will create freedom, which, like I said, is one of my core values. And I would argue that it's probably one of the core values of most of us: the freedom to live the life we love, the freedom to set and achieve any goals we want, the freedom to make choices for ourselves, right? So, okay, before I get into into this week's key, which is today, I have a question I want you to think about. Okay. And I want you to think hard. How many times have you lost motivation so far this month? How many times have you lost motivation this month? Okay. Right now we are in February. Well, you might be listening to this in August. I don't know. But just think, whatever month you're in, how many times have you lost motivation with whatever goal you're in? How many times this year have you lost motivation? How many times this week have you lost motivation? And then I want you to ask yourself, how many times today have you lost motivation? I know I start my days with a pretty aggressive to-do list, and I feel like I'm going to get everything done, right? And then I feel supercharged in the morning. Everyone feels supercharged at a different time of day. And I get into my day and I'm like, what was I thinking? I don't even know if I want to get out of bed. I don't even know if I want to leave the house, right? So that motivation, for me, maybe it's when I'm driving to the gym or I'm sitting in front of the gym, I've lost motivation and I have to find ways to get myself motivated to get out of the gym. Now, I want you to know, whatever your answer to this question might be, whether you've lost motivation or you haven't, maybe you're in a place where you have great motivation, I want you to know you're right on track. If you're like, yeah, I set a goal at the beginning of the new year And Heidi, I have completely lost motivation. Or maybe you were someone inside of my 21-day challenge that I did earlier this year. And we talked about this in there, right? About 2 weeks in, you're like, man, I've lost motivation. I don't know how to keep going. Sometimes it's the halfway point. I want you to do a mental inventory of when you start something new, whether it's on a big scale or a small scale, whether it's an annual goal, a quarterly goal, a monthly goal, or even a daily goal, right? Something you're trying to achieve today. When do you find yourself losing motivation? Okay, think about that moment and trust me when I say you are right on schedule. Yeah. If you're in the middle of something right now and you don't know if you want to finish, you need to know you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And there is absolutely nothing to feel guilty about. There's nothing to beat yourself up about. I want you to know, most importantly, you are not alone. Every single one of us, including me, suffers from a lack of motivation from time to time. I think it's really easy for people to see me on camera or name that influencer, name that specialist, that guru, whoever you're watching on camera. You're like, oh, she never lacks motivation. Well, I beg to differ. That person, whoever you're following, even if they're as tough as nails, right? And you see them accomplishing goal after goal after goal, or teaching how to accomplish goal after goal after goal. And you're like, man, they just don't ever fail. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They fall, they struggle, they're not motivated. I'm a fitness professional and I will tell you, I am not motivated most days. I want to go to the gym. When I set a goal, there is a point in time, usually a big point in time, where I'm not motivated. Even on a daily basis, as I'm achieving the goal, I'm not always motivated. And I think it's so important for you to know. So if you listening to this right now or watching this, if you are struggling with motivation right now, or if you have any point in the past or the future, you need to know this is not a bad thing. And here is why. So when you're trying to make any type of change in your life, there will be times when you're nailing your goals. And then there will be other times where you just don't want to do what you need to do. Right? And this is why having realistic expectations is so important. I talk about realistic expectations a lot. Very important. Today, we're going to give you realistic expectations. Okay? Realistic expectations. It's actually, let me say this because this is very important. Disappointment is always caused by unmet expectations. Think about that. Disappointment is always caused by unmet expectations. When you're disappointed, why are you disappointed? You're not disappointed because things went wrong, right? Or someone did something. You're disappointed because you had an expectation that it was going to go one way and it actually went the other way. So how do we remove disappointment? We have realistic expectations. Now, that doesn't mean we have a low bar for everyone in our life. That doesn't mean we have a low bar for ourselves. No, we still raise the bar. We still meet ourselves at the bar. We still have high standards for everything we do. But we understand and we have realistic expectations for what the journey ahead might look like. This is a very important thing on our show, Extreme Weight Loss. And in every single challenge, this is something that I always teach people right off the bat. Always. And I say the journey ahead is not going to be rainbows and butterflies. It's not going to be smooth sailing. You're not always going to be progressing just like this, right? I'm kind of doing an upward, what do you call this? An upward trending signal. It's not always going to be great. In fact, you're not always going to lose weight if you are on a weight loss journey. There are going to be days and weeks where you gain weight. There are going to be days and weeks where you maintain weight. There are going to be days and weeks where you're like, I binged and I gained, right? I gained weight. It's not going to be perfect. And I think that is a huge misconception when we see someone who is successful. We automatically think, oh, they never messed up. They never struggled. They never lacked motivation. They never had a week where they didn't lose weight. They never ate wrong. Heidi must never eat bad. She must never splurge, right? No, 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 no. If you're on a weight loss journey, actually, I'm going to say if you're on a physical transformation, because there is a difference between weight loss and transformation. If you are on a weight loss journey or a physical transformation journey, you need to expect that there will be ups and there will be downs. There will be highs and there will be lows. And if you do not expect it, when it hits you or you have a quote unquote bad day, or you struggle one day, or you lack motivation, if you don't expect that, you will fall flat on your face. You will throw your hands up when it's difficult and you will quit once again. You will continue to be the person who starts a journey, starts a challenge, sets a goal or a resolution, gets 2 weeks in, and joins the 90% of people who quit at that 2-week mark. Because you didn't expect that it would be hard. And when it gets hard, you think something's wrong with you and it's not supposed to be that way. No, I want you to know that that is a very, very normal thing. I also want you to expect or understand the importance of expecting that real life will pop up. I want you to think through how many times you've set a goal, one that you should be able to achieve because everybody else can achieve that goal. And when you get going, you might have a good cadence, some really great momentum. And then from out of nowhere, real life pops up. Maybe a tragedy in your family or something happened with your kids and you quit, right? Having realistic expectations that when you start a journey, real life is going to happen. And this time, you need to figure out, like the key is in figuring out how you keep going beyond and through real life. Okay? Because what would be easy is to do what you've always done and to go back to what was comfortable and numbing, right? To avoid the create distraction to avoid the pain. But that always will inevitably land you where you landed before, which is failing and through failure. So one of the best things that I learned, I learned this just a couple years ago, and I love this, and I want to share this with you. It's called the Kelley and Connor emotional cycle of change. So in my show notes on this podcast, I have a link that is going to be clickable, I think. I don't know how this works. My team knows how this works. They're very tech savvy. I'm not. But there should be a link in show notes that will give you, you'll be able to pull up, I don't know, a PDF or something of 2 different things. There's going to be the Kelley and Connor emotional cycle of change, and there's going to be another one that we'll talk about in a bit. If you want to get that and follow along, you can. So you actually have an image of what I'm talking about right here. If you don't, just listen along, okay? And try and draw a picture in your head. And if you can't draw a picture in your head, just listen to what I'm saying about this, because there are 5 stages in this model. And these 5 stages are stages that in this Kelley and Connor emotional cycle of change, these specialists, or I believe Kelley and Connor must be doctors, or I don't know. They're people who are insanely qualified. Okay. And then same with the other model that we're going to go through. But these people said, hey, it has been scientifically proven that we absolutely, as human beings, must move through these 5 stages in order to see results. There are no exceptions. So as you're listening to this, I want you to think through everyone you see as successful. All of those people where you're like, oh man, they had it easy. It was an overnight success. And I want you to recognize and accept that no, they've been through these 5 stages, not just once, but many, many, many times. And these 5 stages, when you understand them, They are 5 stages that give you realistic expectations for what's ahead. And when you have those realistic expectations for what is ahead, you can embrace the crappy parts. You can embrace those lows. You can embrace them and say, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be here. You can embrace the moments where you are losing or lacking motivation. And maybe it's right now. And you can say, this is supposed to happen because Heidi said so, because she learned it from the Kelley and Connor emotional cycle of change. Okay. So know that these 5 stages, they speak to how we as human beings feel emotionally. Now, before we dive in, there's 5 stages. Gosh, I don't know that I want to read them all ahead of time. Okay. I'm not going to give it away. So let's just follow along. If you have the chart up, you already see them. So for those of you that don't have the chart in front of you, I'm going to explain the chart to you. Okay. So there's an x-axis, which is the horizontal line at the bottom of the chart, right? Remember in math, we used to do these charts, these graphs. So the x-axis, the bottom line is the wisdom that you have. On the far left, right, where x meets y, it's you know nothing. So I'm just setting up the framework of this graph. You know nothing. As the line travels to the right, that's as you're increasing wisdom, you're a guru on the other side. Now for the y-axis, the part that goes up and down on the left, so the vertical line on the left, this is your confidence, okay? So the y-axis is your confidence. The bottom line is your wisdom. Now, confidence being low at the bottom, rising up to high at the top, okay? So here's how I want you to think about this. Before you start any journey, you're kind of at the bottom corner of that graph, right? And I want you to imagine the bottom corner of the graph as the springboard. It's like the diving board. And you know, a diving board, you jump off, right? And you kind of create that upward arc and then you go down, okay? So the first part of this graph or this cycle of change is going to follow that, right? We're starting at the bottom. We say, oh my gosh, this is a goal. I want you to think about this. Insert in this, as I go through these 5 stages, I want you to think through any goal you've set, whether it's recently or this was in the past, something that meant a lot to you where you know you lost motivation, okay? I'm going to use the 21-day challenge, for example. Before you start any kind of a challenge, you're so excited. Maybe it was New Year and you're like, oh my gosh, Heidi's doing a 21-day challenge. I'm so excited for this. Or this person's doing a challenge. I'm going to join it. I'm going to go on this weight loss journey. I'm going to do this once and for all. You're so excited. You jump off that springboard and your confidence goes up, right? Kind of remember, you're jumping off of a diving board up at the peak. I want you to stop. That's stage 1. So stage 1 is called uninformed optimism. So uninformed optimism. So basically saying you don't know a lot yet, but you're very optimistic and you have high confidence level. So going back to how you felt when you first started your goal, you felt excited about doing something new. You were super stoked for all of the possibilities. You were all in. You were ready. You were committed. Think of day 1 of the challenge or any challenge you've done. In this stage, you might be saying things to yourself like, okay, this program is for me. This is the thing that's going to work this time, right? This will be the time that the habits actually stick. Maybe you're saying something like, I'm so excited about this goal. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm going to drink all my water. I'm going to eat all of my food. Like, this is it, right? And you're like in the community. For my challenge communities, you're in the community. You're feeding off of the fuel that everyone is giving. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is it. I can feel it in my gut. This is amazing. I'm ready. And then, right, but that's called uninformed optimism. You don't really know what the journey ahead looks like, but you know you're optimistic. Your confidence is high, but you don't know anything yet, right? You just know that you want to do this. Then what happens after that? That's stage 1, uninformed optimism. Then the newness, it starts to wear off. You start to get bored. Maybe real life gets in the way. maybe 4 or 5 days in, you realize that you overcommitted and you had unrealistic expectations. Can you relate to this? And then you realize your optimism was uninformed. So you're realizing, oh my gosh, as I'm learning more, that maybe I bit off more than I could chew. That optimism right there at the peak of the dive off the diving board, that optimism was uninformed. It was unrealistic when you compare it to the realities of your life, right? And what you're doing or what you've achieved so far. Okay. So there's the other graph. So if you downloaded the thing, you'll see another graph. It looks the same. It has the same arc and curve, and it's 5 stages, right? But what I want you to pay special attention to on the other graph is this is the Dunning-Kruger model, right? And at that, what was called the uninformed optimism with Kelley and Connor, the Dunning-Kruger model, they actually call this stage, it's appropriately named the peak of Mount Stupid. I love this. The peak of Mount Stupid. And it's funny. It's based on some pretty funny scientific research. So basically, they would ask big groups of people back in the day to complete a quiz. Then they would ask everyone in the room how they thought they did on the quiz. So these studies, they found over and over that the people with lower skill level tended to view themselves as having done better. So the people with lower skill tend to view themselves as more skilled, like those who perform worse on the quiz would actually think that they performed better. And so in other words, it's the dumber we are, and I'm using air quotes if you're listening, the dumber we are, the smarter we think we are. And actually, when we don't know very much about something, we think we know a lot. And for example, a real life example that I think about all the time when I hear this model is, have you ever met a newlywed? The newlywed who is really great at parenting, and they say things like, how hard is it to keep those kids in line? Like, I know I used to think that when I was newlywed or I didn't have kids, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like those parents don't know what they're doing. Let me go show them how to parent. Like I can discipline that kid in 5 minutes. Or maybe, my son, Maddox right now, he's 19. And at 19, you know everything. I think at 19, I knew everything. And that is the epitome of the peak of Mount Stupid. And as a parent, we look at those 19-year-olds, and I'm sure my parents did the same thing for me. They looked at me at 19 and they're like, oh my gosh, that's the peak of Mount Stupid, right? Uninformed optimism. I'm super optimistic about all the things that I know, but I have no idea what life is about to bring me, right? And I need you to know, while we'll find out, right? You need to know that this stage is a very important part of making any lasting change. That uninformed optimism about having babies or even getting married or switching careers, like not really knowing what you're getting into, but doing it anyway. That excitement that comes with it is so crucial, because if we knew everything that was going to come with having a newborn, like if we actually knew what that was like, there's a lot of people that wouldn't have. I don't know if I would have had my babies. It would have been so scary to me. I needed to take that leap, right? Same with marriage. If we knew all the heartache and all the pain that actually came with being married, we might never take that leap. If we knew what running our own business would actually be like, if we were so informed that we understood, would we actually take the leap? At least that first time, probably not. Okay, so stage 1, uninformed optimism, otherwise known as peak of Mount Stupid. Stage 2, so that line, we dove off the diving board, we hit our peak, and we're starting to come down. So about halfway down, we hit stage number 2, which is informed pessimism, right? So this is where you might be right now with any of your New Year's resolutions. Maybe you're past it and you're on to the next stage, but think about it. When you make those New Year's resolutions and reality starts to set in, optimism fades, right? You're realizing that your goal might take you longer than you thought. don't they always? You realize it's going to be harder. Like you say, oh my gosh, this is going to take a lot of work. This is going to be very difficult. And I don't think I planned on it. Then life starts to show up. Your kids have issues you have to deal with. It becomes a lot harder. You got to make that emergency trip to another state to take care of your aunt or your mom or whatever it is. Then all of those realities combine with fear start to stop us, right? And then who shows up? So right after fear shows up, or about the same time, your inner critic makes its appearance. Your inner critic shows up to the party, right? What does that inner critic say? I want you to think through what your inner critic says. Maybe it's, can I actually do this? Maybe I'm not that good after all. Maybe I'm not capable. Maybe I'm not like everyone else who's reaching their goals. What's wrong with me? Right? Or maybe this plan just doesn't work for me. I want you to think through all of those things that are happening in your mind, right? And what's interesting is as you ask or the inner critic starts asking those questions, you actually believe it. And you're like, no, I'm not capable. I don't think I can do this, right? So in this stage, informed pessimism, you are so hard on yourself, which causes you to slide down even further into that pessimism-filled rabbit hole. But when you're in this stage, I want you to remember this. You know more in this stage than you did in stage 1. So remember that line at the bottom I said from the left to the right, it's you know nothing. And as you progress to the right, it's you're a guru. Your knowledge, your wisdom increases. So here we are traveling from left to right on this graph. Yes, your confidence is going down because you made that dive, peak hit, your confidence is going down, but you are still traveling further to the left. So you are knowing more. You know more today in stage 2 than you did in stage 1, but you think you know less. You underestimate your skills. You think you're going backwards and you might even feel stuck. And you're super hard on yourself. And so you're slipping lower and lower into stage 3. You know more than you did in stage 1, but you feel like you're capable of doing less. Stage 3. Stage 3 is the valley of despair. Stage 3, many of you might be here. When I'm doing the 21-day challenge or any kind of a challenge, this is about the midway point. The midway point of any goal, maybe it's even a little before the midway, is like, oh my gosh, I'm not even halfway done and I have over halfway to go. And now I know how much work this is taking. That inner critic has shown up and I am officially at the lowest of low. I'm in the valley of despair. Now, I'm going to remind you, this doesn't just go for a weight loss journey. This has gone for me on a macro level in many areas of my life, like many goals I've set or even just existing. And I want to remind you that this valley of despair, when you're like, I can't get any lower than I am. I can't have any more things go wrong. I can't have any things taken from me that I don't have anything else to give. I can't get lower. I can't mess up more. I can't feel more hopeless. I can't feel more flawed. I want you to know you are exactly where you're supposed to be in that moment. You need to feel this. You are normal. You are not alone. This is that spot. This is that ultimate breakdown. And I've said it before, that breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. If you quit now at the valley of despair, you are giving up the greatest breakthrough you have seen yet in your life. You are giving up your opportunity to grow stronger and more powerful than you've ever been. You are giving up your ability to learn valuable lessons that you are meant to learn that will prepare you for the next battle. So do not give up in the valley of despair, right? So now that tangent's over. I want to go back to the valley of despair. This is where you are really doubting yourself. This is the opposite of being at the peak of Mount Stupid. So the exact opposite, right? Your optimism was high. You knew nothing, but you felt like you know everything, right? Now you're more skilled. You're more skilled than you were in stage 1 and stage 2. You are in stage 3. So your skills are being fine-tuned, but your abilities they're more doubted than ever. Like, don't you see how funny this is? When you're in the valley of despair, you actually know more than you ever have in the realm that you're in, but you think you know less. You know more and you're doubting yourself more. Isn't that crazy? And this is why the valley of despair, it actually sucks. This is where maybe your results plateau, or if you're in a business, this is where you're realizing, oh my gosh, marketing today is so much harder and so much different than it was before. I didn't even understand how to run a business. Now I have to manage people. I'm losing money every month, right? This is the valley of despair. In life, in general, in my healing, oh my gosh, when I started my healing journey, you guys, holy moly, the valley of despair was so real. And I was like, who do I think I am to ever heal? I'm always going to be flawed. I'm always going to be wounded. I'm always going to be broken. And I could have quit, and I wanted to quit, right? And when you want to quit the most is when you should quit the least. Bottom line, you shouldn't quit. That's what I mean. In that valley of despair, this is where you underestimate your skills. You underestimate not only your skills, but you underestimate your power, your divinely given power from God. You are powerful. You are worthy. You are enough to complete any journey you are on, but you have to know this. You have to believe it at your core. And you have to also have faith that while you feel like you are sliding down and you're going backwards, you're actually not. You are still moving forward. As long as you keep showing up, as long as you keep moving forward, as long as you keep walking through that valley of despair, you're going to make it. So when you're at the top of stage 1, you might look at people who are struggling and think, what is so hard about that? Right? And then when you're in the depths of the struggle in the valley of despair, you see some new program, right? You see a new program, or you see someone on Instagram who's telling you that maybe you're doing it wrong. Or I know in a lot of think of any weight loss program you've ever done. You tend, as when you're struggling, you'll usually look to your friends and you'll see them moving faster or getting better results. You know why? Because they literally just took the dive off the diving board. They're at Uninformed Optimism. They're at the excitement of phase 1, right? Everything is fun the first week. Every single thing is fun the first week. And if you switch plans, or if you switch careers again, or you switch relationships again to make it new and exciting, you're going to feel new. You're going to feel exciting. And then guess what's going to happen? You're going to go back down to that informed pessimism. And from informed pessimism, you're going to dip into that valley of despair. So no matter how many times you jump around from plan to plan, or relationship to relationship, or job to job, or career to career, trying to find that fix, trying to find that excitement again, it is inevitable. You're going to have to go through those really sucky parts of the program, those really sucky parts of the cycle. And so one day, I know for me, I had to realize, holy moly, okay, I'm going to experience this with anyone. I'm going to experience this with any job. I'm going to experience this with any goal I set. So why not stick to the goal I'm inside of? I mean, light bulb moment for me. Why not stick to the challenge that you already committed to? Why not see it through? Why not go through the low and find out what you're made of? Why not test your grit? Why not make it through the breakdown to the breakthrough instead of jumping from thing to thing? So here's what you need to remember about navigating through the valley of despair. If you feel like you suck, you're doing it right. You're right on track, right? There's a really great quote from Babe Ruth, right? If you feel like everyone's booing you, I want you to remember this quote. He says, "The loudest boos come from the cheapest seats." The loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. So don't listen to the people at the top of Mount Stupid. Don't listen to your past self asking if this should be easier. Don't listen to your past self criticizing you because it's taking longer or maybe you're moving slower. Unfortunately, a lot of people quit at stage 3, at the valley of despair, because that stage 1 is more fulfilling. Do not forget you are on the right path. You're just in the valley of despair, and you can't shortcut it. There's no way around it. There is only a way through it. Okay. So once you make it through, because you will make it through, you will. It's inevitable. Stage 4, if you're following, so we dove off the diving board. We hit stage 1 at the top. We started about halfway down as we're falling. We hit stage 2 with that informed pessimism. We hit the bottom at the valley of despair. Now, as we move through the valley of despair, we start to go up again. We go up, we're going further along, we are learning more, our confidence is starting to increase. This is the 4th stage called informed optimism. Now, informed optimism, this is when you've pushed through. You see there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You realize that there is a way for you to accomplish your goal. You continue to learn more. You're adjusting your approach. Things are getting a little bit easier. You continue executing. Your confidence is higher. You're starting to see the wins. The results are showing. You're feeling so much better, but beware, because while you're feeling better, you should know that this is a phase where people can start stalling because you're feeling good. So what happens sometimes when we're feeling good? We start to kick our feet up, and procrastination starts to set in. I mean, I speak for myself when I say this. You know, you're halfway through your challenge and you're like, oh my gosh, the finish line is right there. I'm just going to slow down a little bit. I'm still losing weight. I'm doing great. Maybe you even take a break. You go to some parties, you fall off your plan, whatever it is, right? This is the stage where, another stage where people tend to quit because they think, oh my gosh, I did it. Like, this is good enough. I'm close enough to my goal. Like I did well. I deserve a break. And it's okay. Like, I'm not saying you can't take a break, but what I want you to be aware of is that sometimes these breaks can turn into longer breaks that turn into longer breaks that justify themselves so much to where you end up quitting your goal altogether, and you justify and feel okay with it in the moment. And if you tell yourself you're okay, but you know as well as anyone else that you're lying to yourself. And it's not as much about losing the weight or having that achievement, but it's about not keeping the promise that you made to yourself. And that's really where down the road, when you don't have integrity, we learned it in lesson 1. When you don't have integrity, you have no dignity. Integrity, your ability to make and keep a promise to yourself, is directly tied to your dignity or your self-love, right? Do not quit at stage 4. On our show, Extreme Weight Loss, we would have contestants who would be, they had hundreds of pounds to lose, and they'd be 20, 30, 40 pounds from their goal. And they were feeling really good. They're like, oh my gosh, I lost 180 pounds. This next 20 is going to come so easy. And so you kind of take your foot off the brake. They would take their foot off the brake, or their foot off the gas. They would take their foot off of the gas, and they would start to coast, and they'd start to justify. They'd start to procrastinate. They'd push their workouts a little bit. And then they couldn't figure out why that last 20, 30, 40 pounds, that last bit of their goal was nearly impossible to reach. I think most people listening can relate to this. They always say those last 10 pounds. Well, it's not that those last 10 pounds don't want to come off. It's that when you get that close to your goal, something happens in our minds. We're at that informed optimism. We're only at stage 4. We haven't reached our goal yet. And we start to take our foot off the gas. We start to justify. We start to tell ourselves it's okay to break the habits that got us here, right? No, it's not. Because that usually leads you to not keeping a promise to yourself. It leads you to, once again, not completing a goal that you set. And I want you to keep in mind, I once heard, good enough is the enemy of greatness. Good enough is the enemy of greatness. I want you to really, really hear that again. I want you to write it down. I want you to remember it, put it on your mirror. Good enough is the enemy of greatness. Remember, in stage 4, you have not made it yet at the end of the challenge. When you're at that final stretch before your half marathon ends or your 5K or whatever it is, you haven't made it yet, right? Yes, you are seeing success, but it's crucial to remember that you're really just a few bad days away from slipping right back into the valley of despair. And we all know how bad that valley of despair sucked. It was hard. It was painful, right? But if you keep pushing through, you will make it through to what is stage 5. Stage 5, I want you to imagine that line, that trending line is still going upward, and we reach the top of the graph, the top, right? Our confidence is as high as it can get. We are officially on the wisdom, all the way to the right of the wisdom line, top right. You hit your goal. Stage 5 is known as success and fulfillment. You did it. This is where you realize that who you are as a person has changed in a very profound way. And not because you did it all perfectly, but because you struggled. And when you struggled big time, you kept going. And when you kept going, you kept learning, right? And you actually had realistic expectations this time. And you realized the truth of you only fail when you choose to quit, because it is true. Stage 5, this is when those changes that you've been working so hard on, they actually become a part of your identity and your self-image. And again, this can be applied toward business. This can be applied toward any phase of your life, any emotional cycle of change, right? Maybe it's as wife, or it's as a mom. You made it through the really tough times and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm actually good at this. I can do this. This is where you begin to celebrate because you did the damn thing and you did it really, really well, right? It wasn't perfect. It was freaking painful and you did it. All right, before I end today's episode, how far in are we? We're 43 minutes. I think I might get this done in under an hour. Before I end today's episode, I want you to hear me. I'm going to give 2 more simple and random tips that I hope can help you when you feel your motivation dropping. And or when those unrealistic expectations start to creep in. So tip number 1, do not compare January you to March or July or October you. Very important. Life will change as the months go by, and things you weren't expecting will happen in your life. So when anything like this happens, your goals, your promises, and your habits must change along with the season of your life, and that is okay. Okay. Tip number 2, aim for 100% consistency, because we want to aim for 100% consistency, but give yourself lots of grace when you mess up. Hear me again, aim for that consistency, but give yourself grace when you mess up, because you will. Remember realistic expectations. Expect that you're going to mess up, and expect that you're going to give yourself the same grace that you would give to your kids when they messed up. Very important. Now, I also want you to think of this. What if we could reframe our slip-ups as, instead of being failures, what if we could look at them as data, right? So when a slip-up happens, maybe ask yourself this. Ask yourself, why did I slip up? Ask yourself, what has changed? And then ask yourself, is this goal or habit or promise still working for me? And if the answer is no, it's okay to change things up. I want you to remember this. Your goals, your habits, and your promises should be serving you, not the other way around. You shouldn't be serving them. They should be serving you. So if your life and your season has changed and your goals, your habits, or your promises that you've made to yourself no longer serve you, change them. You are in charge of your life, nobody else. And I want you to remember, no matter what, it's just data. Data says nothing about who you are as a person or about your chances of success. It's just data, and data can be a fantastic teacher. So I have an invitation for you this week on Heidi's Lane podcast. I'm loving this. It feels really fun to get into teaching you the things that I've learned along the way. So thanks for being here. I hope this is helping you as much as it's helped me in my life. Okay, so invitation for this week. So while I always encourage you to find one gold nugget in each episode, I do have a very specific ask for you this week. So my ask is this: every time you feel your motivation slipping, every time you feel like maybe this isn't meant for me, or maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I've done enough, I want to quit right now, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. Question number 1, before you quit, ask yourself, what if I kept going? What if I gave myself grace? What if I gave myself flexibility? Right? What if I chalked that up as just a slip up and I keep going? What if I find one way to take a baby step closer toward my goal, even if it's not perfect, even if I haven't been perfect? What if instead of quitting right now, I keep going? What would happen? Okay, so that's question 1. Question 2, what's the alternative? If I quit right now, what is the alternative? Well, broken integrity. I'm going to go back to putting others before myself, because sometimes life gets in the way and we feel like we need to quit our goals to serve other people. So you're going to go back to putting them first and making yourself less of a priority? Maybe the alternative is quitting, thinking you're going to try another plan, but then, okay, go back. If you try another plan, remember what's going to happen. You're going to have all that excitement, peak of Mount Stupid, and then you're going to fall back into that valley of despair. Okay? Think of those alternatives. Question number 3, the most important question. Which one will I choose? Will I choose to quit, or will I make this time different than every other time? I am here to tell you that one of the most important lessons I've learned in my life is if I want a different result, I've got to do it different than I've ever done. And if you've always quit, if you've always let this struggle or that valley of despair tell you that you are not enough, or you are not meant for greatness, or you are not meant to achieve your goals, why not try different this time? Why not choose different this time? Why not take that baby step? Why not keep going? Right? Why not push through? Why not finally realize just how powerful you are? I'm really excited to be doing this with you. Thank you for being here. And I hope you found some great gold nuggets. I really hope you embrace this invitation. Please, I love when you tag me on Instagram, because that's kind of my way to get feedback for how you're loving these episodes, or you want different. But today was fun. And even in teaching, I hope you know, I learn something new every single time I am reminded of things that maybe I heard differently the last time. Bookmark this episode, share this episode, go to social media, let me know what you want more of. Thank you for being here with me today. I love you. I see you. I hear you. And we will be back soon for part 4.